Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Sociable Chemist podcast. I'm your host, Fanelwang Ajay, and I'm so happy to be here once again. Well, today, what I wanted to explore, what I wanted to talk about is my journey as to how I became a chemist. Well, just to confess, I didn't set out to become a chemist at the start. So in 2002, when I started at UWC, I registered as a student for medical biosciences. And the reason behind that was that I enjoyed biology so much at school, such that I was convinced that I was going to become a physician, I was going to become a doctor, one of the best in the country. However, at the end of matric, my biology marks were not that great. Math mark wasn't that great. My physics marks wasn't that great. However, I got the exemption to get into university at the time, but my marks were not good enough for me to study medicine. So I eventually considered and said, fine, I'll do medical biosciences. It's not a problem. So I started first year, no problem. It was exciting, meeting new friends, the university, going about, seeing lecturers, venues, getting to know new people. The shock of my life was when I started doing practicals. So when I did the medical biosciences practical, so I did anatomy in that department then. I enjoyed it. I passed it. I really enjoyed it. What I really didn't like was the practicals because we did practicals on cadavers. So you had to identify certain parts on the cadaver. As much as I understood it and I wasn't scared of the cadavers, I didn't see myself in this field for long. The other reason that I really found that university was tough for me was that I was failing. I was doing maths. I failed maths. I was doing biotechnology. I was failing biotechnology. I wasn't doing very great. I remember my first biotechnology tutorial, I got a zero and I thought that the tutor had made a mistake. So I went to his office and I asked, what's happening? I don't think I got a zero. And to my shock, he took out my script and he showed me I got a zero. I was so horrified. I was so sad. I didn't know whether to cry or to go and sleep. I just didn't know what to do with myself. In that moment, I knew that biotechnology wasn't for me. I knew that anatomy wasn't really for me. My other challenge was that I just could not cram. I wasn't good at cramming. I would cram and forget. So there was the belief also that once you had done medical biosciences and you completed the 3 years, there was the belief that you could enter medical school and start from second year. So I was one of those believing that, okay, if I do well in this degree, oh my word, one of our lecturers at the time, I remember we found him there. He was going to leave around September of that year. And the discouragement to when myself and a group of other ladies went to speak to him, he told us that, oh, there wasn't any careers in medical biosciences. And sorry, unless if we want to become lecturers. And my gosh, at the time we were doing first year, we had all these beliefs and we didn't want to become lecturers. So I thought if there aren't any job prospects and I'm not going to medical school, the best thing for me, because I'm not doing that great, is to go to the chemistry department and enroll there. Fortunately for me, I understood chemistry. From high school, it was easy. I understood it. When I got to varsity, I wasn't too surprised about it. The only horrifying part of chemistry were the practicals. And I didn't know that we had to prepare before going to the lab. You get there and you're expected to know everything that has to do with the lab. I mean, I and a few others, we had never seen laboratories. And you would agree with me when I say that that is still the reality of students nowadays. When they start first year, they've never seen labs because the schools don't have labs. So the training then was such that the coordinator of the course or the demonstrators, the lab demonstrators would come and give a pre-practical talk. So a pre-practical talk is when somebody comes in, they explain the theory behind the practical, and then they expect you to start doing the practical. They do give you the steps of what you're supposed to do, all right? And you do also have a practical book you are reading, and you're expected to carry out experiments. Now, if you don't know a beaker from an Erlenmeyer flask, it means that you will be calling this demonstrator all the time until he or she is so tired of you because you do not know what is going on. So that is when I had to learn that when you go to the practical, you have to prepare. But it was tough. The only thing that gave me comfort was that I understood the theory. So I could read, I could understand everything about it, and I could transfer or give back the information that was required for me. The pracs, I tried my best, and fortunately, I was able to pass. I do not know how I got past the first year. I really don't know. But I remember that I had to repeat biotechnology in the second year and I had to repeat maths in the second year. Fortunately, I got rid of them and then I was able to proceed with chemistry in the third year because then you could do only chemistry modules. I don't know about other universities though, but in my university, you just did the chemistry modules at third year and at honors. Now, remember, I came in thinking that I'm going to become a doctor. But that dream flew out around August or September of 2002. That dream died right there. So I found myself doing honors. And the reason why I did honors was because I didn't get a job. You know, I was applying for jobs. I didn't get a job. And I remember my friend then, Dr. Sipoma Vondla, was the one that motivated me and told me, listen, do honors and introduced me to my, my future, I would say, honors project professor and my future master's and PhD professor. Then, so I just did not know whether I wanted to do these honors or not. But it was during the transition from third year into honors that I actually was starting to enjoy explaining concepts to my friends or whoever didn't understand. I was patient enough to be able to explain. But at the back of my mind, I didn't have the idea that I would become a lecturer. I had the idea that I would leave university and go and work in an industry or Cecil or any other fancy chemical industry where I would contribute to the country, discover something novel. That was at the back of my mind. So I was just excited about it. Oh my word, honors came. Honors was exciting. Our class was small. We got along very well. We did very well. Honors end of the year came. Now, what are we going to do? Some people left, went to other institutions. I was one of those that chose to stay at UWC. So I did my master's because now there's no work. And then my thinking started to change as I was doing my master's project. I started to enjoy explaining to kids. And by then, I was doing the work study program in the department. So I, as well as other postgrad students, we were also in charge now of practicals, explaining to students what they have to do in the practical. We were also mentoring other honor students as well that were in our lab. So what was exciting about my master's project was the fact that in our lab, there were many people that came in, many students came across Africa. So it was then that I really was now starting to enjoy what I was doing. Before you know it, master's ended with the distinction. I was very happy, motivated. I told myself I'm going for a PhD. Did my PhD, but then I was starting to have a family. I was married. I had a child. I started PhD. First year was 2008 when I had my baby. Second year was 2009. And then I got employment in the department. I started lecturing. Oh my word. I then could feel joy. I remember the first time I went to class to start lecturing. I was so happy. I was so prepared. But I didn't have a title. I was just Miss Vanelwa because I was still busy with my PhD. It motivated me to get my title. I got my title 2011. I was very happy. By then, I could understand the importance of research. I could understand the importance of working with others and the importance of explaining or giving back to the next generation. But now I was hooked at becoming a lecturer. I was hooked at becoming a researcher. The idea that I was going to become a medical doctor flew out of the window. It was just wasn't there anymore. So I just lived with the fact that I'm now become a researcher. I'm a fully fledged chemist. Now, for those who don't understand, when I say I became a chemist, it means that I got my 3-year qualification. Now, chemistry, one would understand, or a degree in chemistry. What it does, it trains you in understanding or the study of matter. Now, when we talk about matter, matter is anything that has weight and that occupies space. So, if we are talking, for instance, about this cup, okay, if we're talking about this cup, for instance, this has weight on its own without the water and it occupies space. So the important thing then would be, how does this cup interact with air? Okay, that would be a chemical process. So again, is there energy generated or is there energy being released by that process between the air and the cup or not? That is what chemists study. But there are many, many, many other areas of chemistry. There's organic chemistry, analytical chemistry, physical chemistry, which is the one that I teach. So in physical chemistry, you don't really see what is going on because it's based on the principle of physics. Okay, so you're taught about things, atoms, molecules that you cannot see with the naked eye. And only thing that you would see in the lab is obviously maybe color changes of a liquid. If this was orange, if a chemical was orange and then the chemical turns yellow, there would be a prediction that the experiment has worked. However, you would then have to characterize, meaning you would have to look at that yellow solution to verify whether or not you've got what you said you would get. So there are various equipment that you would use in order for that to be realized. Now, you have inorganic chemistry that deals with metals, the interaction between metals, the formation of alloys is that stream. Organic chemistry has to do with the study of carbon structures. Anything that has a structure that it has a carbon to it. How do you know carbon structures interact with one another? What are the products looking like? Where one can use those products at the end. So there's so many areas of chemistry that one now has, or there's always been there. The exciting part, I think this is where I fell in love with nanotechnology, because I was exposed to nanotechnology from master's level, where you make nanoparticles, all right, and then use those nanoparticles to make different things. In my case, I was using the nanoparticles to make drug sensors, and I did that at master's and at PhD level. So when we talk about sensors, for instance, we are talking about a gadget that would be able to give you a response when it's subjected to something. So in my case, I was using nanoparticles. And nanoparticles, if I can explain to you, is that when you have a metal and that metal is broken down such that you do not see it with the naked eye, that is what we are talking about, nano. So nano you cannot see with the naked eye. And the particle obviously is the particle of that ground down or broken down metal that can then be used to synthesize or to make things. So in terms of the sensor, you put in something in a sensor, just like in a pregnancy test, and it gives you a response, whether it's a positive response or it's a negative response. So in my case, I was looking at the fact that if somebody is taking antidepressants, this is masters, or somebody is taking TB drugs, this is at PhD level, is there a way or not of verifying whether the medication in the body is working or not? So the idea of having the sensor was to subject somebody's blood in order to be able to know what kind of concentration or the amount of concentration that individual has in their blood. That would then give the healthcare professional an idea of whether or not the medication is working or not. Now, where does this reasoning come from? Now, let's think about Panado for a second. So if you have Panado, you'll realize that doctors will often say, okay, take Panado 1,000 milligrams, 500 milligrams each tablet, take 1,000 milligrams 3 times a day. Can think now how many people has this doctor told to take this medication in the same manner. So some people are fast metabolizers, meaning that they'll take the Panado gets digested quickly in the body, and then the effect is not felt to reduce the pain. Some people are slow metabolizers, which means that the drug remains in the body, and instead of fixing the body, it remains in the body and causes side effects, it causes other problems in the body, you know. And then you have normal metabolizers who are people who take the medication as they are told and the medication works. So the idea was if somebody comes presenting to a healthcare practitioner with side effects, the idea of these sensors was to then know what is the concentration of those drugs when they arrive there. So that is what I really fell in love with. And eventually, when I was done with my PhD, as I progressed to train students at master's, PhD level honors, I also built on my research stream using nanomaterial for this kind of work and also other areas because it's important to collaborate when you are an academic, when you're a researcher, so that you can learn from others. What are they doing? Where are they now? And also they help you in applying for funding. So there's so many things that I can share about my journey as an academic, but these are conversations which I want to have when I have guests with me so that we can talk about, the struggles of becoming an academic. What have we done in order for us to strengthen our abilities as academics? So that was my story about how I became a chemist. I did not seek out to become one. I wanted to become a doctor, but now I'm a doctor of the classroom, okay? I'm the doctor of chemistry, which is good enough for me. I'm happy, but I'm just always think that when young people apply for schooling, it breaks my heart when I see some of them really not getting into the programs that they like. But sometimes there's a reason for everything that happens in life. Sometimes it's just how life is supposed to stir you, and sometimes you just have to follow that path that you are put in. So continue to support us, like our content both on YouTube and on Instagram. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube, please, so that we can grow and continue to share conversations, continue to share content. And I must say, I really appreciate your contribution. I'm very happy that you're supporting us. So thank you once again. See you in the next episode and take care.